Assalamualaikum and very good day to our respected lecturer and everyone watching this presentation. We are from Group 4 and today we're pleased to present our research project for STA406, Statistics for Application. My name is Nur Farah Enda binti Muhammad Ali, together with my group members Nur Elsa Alina binti Amdan and Nur Fawiza binti Zulkifli, and last we have Nur Hadisah binti Johari. We will be presenting our study entitled The Effect of Mental Health on Academic Performance among Universities in Malaysia. So, let's start.
Now, let me begin with the background of our study. University students face various challenges throughout their academic journey, including academic pressure, financial difficulties, and personal issues. These challenges may lead to mental health problems such as stress, anxiety, and depression. When students experience poor mental health, they may lose motivation, have difficulty concentrating, and become less productive in their studies. As a result, their academic performance, especially their CGPA, may be affected. In Malaysia, mental health amongst university students has become an increasingly important issue. Therefore, this study was conducted to better understand whether mental health has an impact on students' academic performance. The finding of this study can also help university understand students' well-being and identify ways to improve both mental health support and academic success. Next, I will briefly explain the objective of our study. The first objective is to describe the demographic, academic and mental health characteristics of university students. The second objective is to determine whether the average CGPA of university students is significantly different from a benchmark CGPA value. The third objective is to examine whether there is a significant difference in CGPA between students who have experienced depression and those who have not. The fourth objective is to examine whether CGPA differs significantly across different levels of academic engagement. Finally, the fifth objective is to determine the effect of study hours per week on academic engagement on students' CGPA. This study provides several important benefits to different groups. Firstly, university can use this finding to improve student support services and develop programs that promote better mental health. Secondly, lecturers and academic advisors can get a better understanding of the challenges students face and provide more appropriate academic guidance. Thirdly, counselors can use this finding to develop more effective mental health intervention programs for students. Students themselves can also benefit by becoming more aware of the importance of maintaining good mental health and healthy study habits to improve their academic performance. Lastly, this study can serve as a useful reference for future researchers who wish to conduct similar studies in this area.
For this study, we used a secondary dataset obtained from Kruger. The dataset consists of 1,000 observations involving university students in Malaysia. Since the dataset contains a large number of observations, it is suitable for statistic analysis and provide reliable findings. These slides show that the first group of variables used in our study, which are gender, depression, anxiety, and panic attack, are qualitative variables because they are classified into categories. Meanwhile, X is a quantitative variable because it is measured using numeric value. The second group of our variables include CGPA, sleep quality, and study hours are quantitative variables, while study stress level and academic engagement are categorical variables measured using order level.
Next, I will explain the method of analysis used in this study. For objective 1, we use descriptive statistics, which include frequency distribution, percentage, mean and standard deviation. This method is suitable because the objective is to describe the demographic, academic, and mental health characteristics of the respondent. For objective 2, we use the one sample t-test to determine whether the average CGPA of university student is significantly different from the benchmark CGPA value. For objective 3, we use the independent sample t-test because we want to compare the mean CGPA between independent groups, which are students who experience depression and students who did not. For objective 4, we apply one-way ANOVA to determine whether there is a significant difference in CGPA across different levels of academic engagement. Finally, the objective 5, we use multiple linear regression because the objective is to determine the effect of more than one independent variable, namely study hour per week and academic engagement on student CGPA. For this study, we use JASP, which standard for Jeffrey Amazing Statistic Program. JASP are chosen because it is user-friendly statistical software that provides accurate and reliable results. It also offers a wide range of statistically analysis required for this study, including descriptive statistics, one sample t-test, independent sample t-test, one-way ANOVA, and multiple linear regression. This software automatically generates clear statistical output, making it easier for us to interpret the results and draw appropriate conclusions. Therefore, JASPs are suitable software for analyzing our data and achieving all of our research objectives.
Now, I will present the findings for objective 1, which is to describe the demographic, academic, and mental health characteristics of university students. For this analysis, we use descriptive statistics, specifically frequency distribution and percentage. This method is appropriate because gender is a qualitative variable and descriptive statistics help us summarize the characteristics of the respondent clearly. The variable involved in this analysis is gender. Based on this finding, the majority of respondents are female students. This indicates that female students make up to a larger proportion of the sample compared to male students. This result gives us a better understanding of the gender composition of the respondent and provide important background information for the study. Therefore, this analysis successfully achieved part of objective 1 by describing the demographic characteristics of the students.
Next, we analyzed the respondent age under Objective 1, which is to describe the demographic characteristic of university students. For this analysis, we use descriptive statistics, especially the mean, median, mode, standard deviation, and variance. This method is appropriate because age is quantitative variable, and descriptive statistics help us to summarize the distribution of respondent age. The variable involved in the analysis is age. Based on the output, the median age is 21 years old, which means that half of the respondents are below 21 years old, and the other half are above 21 years old. In addition, the mode is 18 years old, indicating the 18 is the most frequent occurring age among the respondents. This finding suggests that majority of respondents are young adults within the typical university age range. Therefore, this analysis successfully contributes to Objective 1 by describing the demographic profile of the respondent.
Next, we examine depression among the respondents. The variable involved is depression, which is a qualitative variable with two categories, students who experience depression and students who did not. Descriptive statistics are appropriate because they allow us to identify how common depression is among the respondents. The finding shows that the percentage of students with and without depression are relatively close. This indicates that depression is a common issue among university students and affects a considerable proportion of the respondents. This result is important because mental health is the main focus of our study, and understanding the prevalence of depression helps us better understanding the respondents' mental health characteristics. Therefore, this finding contributes to Objective 1.
The variable involved is anxiety, which is also qualitative variable. Again, the descriptive statistics were used because they are suitable for summarizing categorical data and showing the distribution of respondents across different categories. The result indicate the anxiety is experienced by a substantial number of students, although the slightly more respondents report not experiencing anxiety. This finding suggests anxiety is another important mental health concern among university students. The result also support the background of study, which highlight that mental health issues are becoming increased common among students. Therefore, this analysis help achieve Objective 1 by describe the mental health characteristic of the respondent.
Next, we analyze panic attacks among the respondents. The variable involved is panic attack, which is a qualitative variable. Descriptive statistics were used because they help us summarize the number of students who have experienced panic attack and those who have not. The findings show that while most students have not experienced panic attacks, a considerable proportion of respondents reported having experienced them. This suggests that panic attack remain an issue affecting many university students. The finding is important because it provides additional insight into the mental health condition of the respondent and strengthen our understanding of the study population. Thus, this analysis contributes to achieving Objective 1.
The variable involved is CGPA, which is quantitative variable. For the quantitative data, descriptive statistics such as mean, median, mode, and standard deviation are appropriate because they summarize the overall academic performance of the respondent. The findings indicate the student generally achieve a good level of academic performance. This means that, on average, the respondents are performing reasonably well in their study. Understanding the student's CGPA is very important because it serves as the dependent variable in the latest statistic analysis. Therefore, Objective 1 has been successfully achieved, as we have described the demographic, mental health, and academic characteristics of university students.
Now, I will move on to Objective 2, which is to determine whether the average CGPA of university student is significantly different from a benchmark CGPA value. To achieve this objective, we use the one-sample t-test. This method is appropriate because it is specifically designed to compare the mean of one sample with a known benchmark value. The variable involved in this analysis is CGPA, which is a quantitative variable. The output provides information about the average CGPA of the respondents and allow us to test whether this average differs significantly from the benchmark value. This analysis is important because it helps us determine whether students' academic performance is consistent with the expected standard. Based on the one-sample t-test result, the p-value obtained is smaller than the significance level of 0.05. This means that the difference observed between the sample mean and the benchmark value is statistically significant and is unlikely to occur by chance. Therefore, we reject the null hypothesis. In the context of this study, this result indicates that the average CGPA of university student is significantly different from a benchmark CGPA value. Hence, Objective 2 has been successfully achieved because we were able to determine whether the average academic performance differ from the benchmark.
Next, I will present the Objective 3, which is to examine whether there is significant difference in CGPA between students who have experienced depression and those who have not. Before conducting the hypothesis test, we first examine the descriptive statistics. The variable involved are depression as the grouping variable and the CGPA as the dependent variable. The descriptive results show how slight difference in the average CGPA between the two groups. However, based on descriptive statistics alone, we cannot determine whether the difference is statistically significant. Therefore, further analyzing using independent sample t-test is required. Before performing the independent sample t-test, we must first check on its assumption using a leaving test of equality of variance. This test is appropriate because it determines whether the variance of the two groups are equal, which is an important assumption for the independent sample t-test. The variable involved remain depression and CGPA. Based on the result, the p-value is greater than 0.05. Therefore, we do not reject the null hypothesis. This indicates the variance between the two groups are equal. Since the assumption is satisfied, we cannot confidently proceed with the independent sample t-test.
Finally, we conduct the independent sample t-test. This method is appropriate because we are comparing the mean CGPA between the two independent groups, namely students who experience depression and students who did not. The variables involved are depression as the independent grouping variable and CGPA as the dependent variable. Based on the result, the p-value is greater than significant level, which is 0.05. Therefore, we do not reject the null hypothesis. This means that there is no statistically significant difference in CGPA between two students who have experienced depression and those who have not. One possibility explained is that academic performance may be influenced by many other factors, such as study habits, motivation, learning strategies, and supporting system, rather than depression alone. Therefore, Objective 3 has been successfully achieved, and we conclude that depression does not significantly affect student CGPA in this study.
To achieve the objective, we use a one-way ANOVA test. This statistical method is appropriate because it compares the mean CGPA across more than two academic engagement groups. It helps us determine whether the differentials among the groups are statistically significant rather than occurring by chance. The results show a statistically significant difference in CGPA across the academic engagement group. Therefore, we reject the null hypothesis because this indicates that students with different level of academic engagement have different academic performance. To conduct a post hoc test, we have to make a difference between Table 1 and Table 2. ANOVA result is significant. We conducted a post hoc test to identify which group differed from one another. The results show that only certain pair of academic engagement group have significant differences, while the remaining group do not differ significantly. Next, I will explain about the post hoc test. The post hoc test is used after ANOVA to identify which specific CGPA group have significant difference in academic engagement. First, CGPA group 1 versus with CGPA group 4. The mean difference is negative 0.2646 and the p-value is 0.007, which is less than 0.05, which is alpha. This indicates a significant difference with a group 1 having a lower academic engagement score than group 4. Secondly, CGPA group 1 is compared with the CGPA group 5. The mean difference is negative 4.077 and the p-value is 0.001, which is also below than 0.05. This means there is a significant difference and group 1 have a lower academic engagement score than group 5. Finally, CGPA group 3 is compared with CGPA group 5. The mean difference is negative 0.229 with a p-value of 0.044, which is less than 0.05. This shows a significant difference where the group 3 have a lower academic engagement score than a group 5. Overall, this finding suggests that the student with the higher CGPA tend to have a higher academic engagement than the student that have lower CGPA. Result may occur because students with higher academic engagement are generally more motivated, manage their time better, and participate more actively in their learning process. This positive learning behavior contributes to a better academic performance and higher CGPA. In conclusion, the four objectives have been achieved. The finding confirmed that CGPA differs significantly across different levels of academic engagement. Therefore, improving student academic engagement may help enhance their academic performance.
Now, I will present the findings for Objective 5. First, we examine the relationship between academic engagement and student CGPA. The results show that the p-value is less than 0.001, which is smaller than the significance level of 0.05. Therefore, there is a statistically significant relationship between academic engagement and CGPA. The Pearson correlation coefficient is R equal to 0.1524, indicating a weak positive linear relationship. Next, we examine the relationship between study hour per week and student CGPA. The p-value is also less than 0.001, indicating a significant relationship. The Pearson correlation coefficient is 0.9321, which indicates a very strong positive linear relationship. Next is the multiple linear regression model summary. In this analysis, the dependent variable is student CGPA, while the independent variable are study hour per week and academic engagement. The adjusted R square value is 88.5%. This means that about 88.5% of the variation in student CGPA can be explained. Next, the ANOVA table is used to determine whether the overall regression model is statistically significant. Since the p-value is less than 0.001, which is lower than 0.05, we reject the null hypothesis. Therefore, the regression model is significant. Next, the coefficient table show the contribution of each independent variable. The result indicate that study hour per week has the stronger positive effect on student CGPA, while academic engagement also contribute positively to CGPA. This means that students who spend more time studying and actively participate in academic activities are more likely to achieve better academic performance. Therefore, Objective 5 is successfully achieved because both variables significantly influence student CGPA. In conclusion, all 5 research objectives were successfully achieved. The findings show that the average CGPA is significantly different from one benchmark value. Depression and study stress level do not significantly affect student CGPA. However, sleep quality, study hour per week, and academic engagement significantly influence academic performance. Among these factors, study hour per week is the strongest predictor of student CGPA. Based on the finding, several improvements are recommended. First, universities should strengthen mental health support service by providing more counseling programs and mental health awareness activity. Second, students should be encouraged to develop effective study habits and improve their time management skill. Third, universities should promote active academic engagement through interactive learning activities and student participation. For future research, researchers are encouraged to use primary data such as survey or interviews, include a larger and more diverse sample, and examine additional factors such as financial stress, family support, and lifestyle, which may also influence student academic performance. I think that's all from us. Thank you.
Like cherry blossoms blooming in the mountain in the early spring.